Hello, folks, and welcome to the Vertigo Tea Party and my review of Thief. First off, I want to say a quick thanks to Raven Valor 95. He's the one who suggested that I do this whenever I finish up a Let's Play to do a little review afterwards, so that's what I'm going to do from now on. So anyway, let's talk about Thief, the reboot. To the too long didn't watch version is that I think, and I said this multiple times during my Let's Play, I think that it's a pretty good stealth game. I think it's a poor game in the Thief franchise. It's important to note that I'm a big fan of the original trilogy. In fact, I would say the original trilogy is probably one of my top 3 game series of all time. The first 2 Thieves, 2 in particular, probably being some of my favorite all-time games. So I was very hyped about this game, and I was very interested. I was a little wary of the information coming out as it was about to be released, but I will say I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting much worse, and overall enjoyed the game. And I'll break into the nuggets here in a little bit, but I overall enjoyed the game. But I felt it took too much away from Thief. If you are a Thief fan, you know that the Thief series isn't just about stealth. It has, obviously the stealth mechanics are important, but Thief is a lot more than that. Thief is a package. It's the gameplay, the stealth mechanics. It's a very particular art style. It's a very particular music style, very particular cinematic style, very thematic of the various factions like the Hammers and the Pagans, the goofy ass guards that you see and hear while you're going around stealing, Garrett himself. It all comes together in a very specific package. So when you play a Thief game, you know what you're going to get. You know we're going to get a very specific type of package. Now with Thief, this new game, it was a reboot. So, of course, you're going to have to give a little and understand that some things are going to change. With a reboot, it's understood that you're going to keep the very, very base parts of the game, like the names of the main characters and what kind of sort of what they're like, and the same basic mechanics of the game. But from there on, you're pretty free to do whatever you want. And I tried to be open to that because the Thief series is very old. The latest game, Thief 3, came out like 10 years ago or something like that. So I was okay with the idea of the Thief reboot. My problem is they ripped out too much of what made Thief, all the things that I just mentioned, the music, the cutscenes, the characters, all of that. And they didn't replace it with anything comparable. The story was okay. There weren't any real interesting factions. I mean, you had the city guard, and you had the guys who you barely even saw that had something to do with summoning the elemental stone and all that. And then you had like those weird creatures, which aren't really a faction. So you didn't have the faction. You didn't have that very unique cinematic style that Thief had. It was missing that very unique Thief music as well, and the very unique characters. There weren't really any interesting characters in this game. There was no Victoria. There was no Trickster. There was just nobody that was like, oh, this character is really interesting. They tried. They tried with like the Thief Master General. And they tried with Basso. Basso obviously played a much larger role, and he was all right, but there was nobody really interesting to make up for all the interesting characters and all the unique styles that the original Thief had. So I really feel that it failed as a Thief game. But speaking of the gameplay, if you don't really care about the old Thief games, or you haven't played them and you're just looking for another stealth game, this game is all right. Now, keep in mind, I played this game. I abused save load a lot, just like I did in the original Thieves. And I went through the game without knocking anyone out. So I didn't really run into any AI issues, but I've seen and heard other people's had some serious AI issues. For the most part, the AI was pretty okay when I played, but be aware that there might be some AI issues for you. I've seen guards doing stupid stuff. And it's the same thing that the AI in stealth games have been doing for a long time, for too long. Things like, for example, guard sees you, and again, this is mostly from me watching other people play. So I didn't experience this myself, because if I got caught, I would auto save load, because I was trying to get a total ghost score. So things like guard sees you. You run into the bedroom. There's no way out of the bedroom, and there's a big closet there, nowhere else really to hide. And the guard just walks around, comes in and goes, well, I guess he's gone, and then walks away. This has been a problem forever. The original, and just to be very clear, because I saw some people saying, well, Thief 1 and 2 had better AI. They definitely did not. The AI was pretty damn terrible in the first two Thieves. This sounds weird, but it's been longer since I played the third one. I enjoyed it, and I know a lot of people like to crap on the third one, but I enjoyed it. But I don't remember the AI that well. Thief 1 and 2, AI, pretty damn bad, but it's excusable. It was 15 years ago. It's 2014. The AI shouldn't be this bad. No, you can't have perfect AI in a stealth game. You can't even have realistic AI in a stealth game because it would be pretty much impossible to beat the game without being detected. Because you would never be able to escape almost, especially if you run into an empty room, and a lot of times that's your only choice. So, the AI really needed to be improved, but myself, I didn't run into it a lot, so it didn't affect me. Now, there are some things that are improvements that I liked. For example, there was one part where I opened the door and left it open, and ran to the other side of a room, and about a minute later, a patrolling guard came by, and noticed that the door was open, and he went into alert mode. Now, that kind of stuff is great, but it's inconsistent, because there was another area, I opened the door, a guard came by, completely didn't notice it. So, it was really inconsistent, but when it worked, it was really nice. You also had to deal with things like dogs and birds in this one, where they can sniff and hear you very easily. Those just annoyed the hell out of me. I really didn't enjoy that aspect, often because they were just really hard to see as well. I prefer more hiding from guards and things of that nature, but it added an interesting aspect because they seem to notice you in different ways. Another thing that needs to be talked about, let's talk about the graphics. The graphics were phenomenal. It's probably one of the better looking games that I've played in a while. Not only did it look phenomenal, it ran really well on my machine. I was getting 40 to 60 frames a second the entire time. Keeping in mind, I was running with everything pretty much on max, if not max, and recording at the same time. So that's pretty damn impressive considering how good it looked. I'm assuming a lot of that has to do with it being so dark, but regardless, the game, I just was constantly blown away by how good the game looked. So, absolute thumbs up there. The atmosphere was also really good, especially that one spooky mission. I'm trying to keep this spoiler free, but the one spooky mission, the atmosphere all around, but in particular, was really, really well done. I like that. I like the way the city looked. Again, it was a bit generic, but to be fair, the cities themselves in the original Thieves and like the layouts and whatnot, pretty generic there as well, let's be honest. So, not a big deal. But there again, there's the city itself, the layout wasn't unique, but it just looked really good and the aesthetic was really nicely done. The sound effects and whatnot, when they weren't bugging out, which was rare that I had sound bugs, but I did have them on occasion and I've heard other people having them as well. The sound was always good. The voice acting was good all around. I don't think I noticed anybody whose voice was just awful or jarring, but the voice acting overall was good. Speaking of, let's talk about Garrett's voice actor, and I'm going to rant about this probably a little bit. So they decided to go with a different voice actor for Thief, and they originally did consider the original voice actor, whose name escapes me right this minute. I think it's Steven something. I'm probably misremembering. But another part of what made Thief was Garrett's, in particular, Garrett's voice. That was just he had a very iconic, noticeable, instantly recognizable voice. And I'm not saying the new voice actor is bad. He's not bad by any means. He had a lot to live up to. Steven Russell was the original voice actor. He had a lot to live up to. And they considered him, but then apparently they didn't pick Steven Russell because he's an older guy. And they're doing the whole motion capture, mocap, as the cool kids call it these days. And he couldn't do the motion capture. And they were like, well, we wanted the person who was doing the voice to do the motion capture, which is a total bullshit excuse. I'm sorry. That's 100% bullshit excuse. They should have stuck with Steven Russell, honestly. I feel pretty strongly about that because, again, the Thief series is not... Anybody who hasn't played it might not understand, but the original Thief series was a lot more than just a stealth game. The Thief series was just a stealth game as much as Metal Gear Solid is just a stealth series, right? Anybody who's played any Metal Gear Solid knows that the stealth is just a very small portion of that game. The same goes for Thief in different ways, obviously. So screwing around with those things that make it Thief, stop making it Thief and make it a stealth game with similarly named characters. Does that make sense? So, and again, I keep harping on that because it's a Thief reboot, right? And it's supposed to be a Thief game. It's supposed to be in the Thief series. And I think they failed at that. But I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's unfair to say it's a bad game because it's not. I enjoyed it. It was very long. They had a lot of stuff to do. I really liked that. There was tons of different things you could steal, different variations of things you could steal, like plaques and the mortal coils and the memories of the dead. There was all kinds of stuff that you could steal. It graded you when you beat a level, just like the originals did. I don't think they graded you. They just said, you stole 80% of the loot or whatever. They did this here. They also grade you based on like Ghost or Predator or Opportunist. And Ghost was obviously the hardest to get, right? Because Ghost was, you don't knock anybody out. You don't get spotted. Even things like putting out torches with water arrows, things like that, cut against your Ghost score. And I'm okay with that. I think it should be. I really like the idea, and I've always liked this idea of going through a stealth game, and this is pretty nerdy, but thinking like the next day, after you've left, after you stole whatever priceless artifacts you've stolen, nobody even knows you were there until they find it missing, and they start an investigation, and they keep finding stuff missing, but everything is exactly where you left it off. All the chests are still closed. Like, all the doors are still closed that were closed before. Nothing's broken. Nothing's been moved around. No line of 5 torches has mysteriously all gone out. Like, everything is exactly as it should be, except all these valuables are missing. I love that idea, and I've always loved that in any of these stealth-type games. And I like that this game rewards you for that. It's pretty difficult to do, for sure, especially if you don't save load scum like I totally did. So I also really like the idea of the customizable difficulty. I think that's great. I turned like focus off, and there's a lot of other things in there. Like, you can make it restart you at the last checkpoint if you get spotted. You can make it restart the entire game if you get spotted, which is insane. And somebody actually has beat the game like that, by the way. Has beat it where if it restarts the entire game if you get spotted, which, like I say, is freaking nuts. And lots of other customizable things that you can do, which is awesome. Again, very awesome. And unlike the initial trailers and stuff, you don't really get rewarded as much. You don't really get rewarded at all for knocking people out and killing them. In the original game, you got like experience for headshotting guards, which was asinine for this game. They completely lost their way on that, in my opinion. And so they kind of reeled them back in and reminded you that no, you're supposed to be doing stealth. And that's another part of the Thief series is, and I'm going to keep going back to this because it is a Thief game, right? Even if it's a reboot, it's still a Thief game. If you're just going to make a stealth game and then throw everything out that made Thief, then name it something else. Don't just try to cash in on the name. But another big part of the Thief series is that, especially if you played on a harder difficulty, you couldn't just run in, and no matter, like, you couldn't upgrade or get weapons. You couldn't just run in and kill 3 guards easily. Now, you could. If it was 1 guard, yeah, you can take 1 guard out pretty easily by yourself. 2 guards, if you're careful, yeah, you can take them out. You can also get killed pretty quickly, too, mostly because the combat was terrible. But 2 guards was iffy. 3 guards, you really are going to need a lot of luck and just a lot of patience with taking them out and abusing the AI and doing other things to take them out. There was no running in. There's not supposed to be other options. There's not supposed to be, well, if you want to play it so that you go around and run and gun and just run into a room and kill all the guards, you can. You're not supposed to do that. It's not supposed to be an option. You're supposed to be punished for that. And maybe, I don't know how viable that is. I know there are upgrades. I saw a lot of upgrades that I could purchase that would make that type of gameplay more possible. I don't know how easy it was, so I can't comment to that. But I will say there seem to be mostly enough tools to allow me to do the stealth route. There was a lot of dumbing down in this game, which really is disappointing. You can't jump wherever you want, which that anytime a game has that immediately screams just dumbing it down. And there's most of the time, I will give them this, most of the time that I needed to jump, I could jump. Most of the time. But there are times that I could make a jump, but I obviously wasn't meant to, so they wouldn't let me jump. Things like that, it's dumbing down, and it's just lazy. It's like, well, we don't want to test to make sure that they can't get up there, so we're just not going to let them jump because this isn't an acceptable place to jump. Totally bullshit to take jump away. Other things, like the rope arrows, could only be used on very specific things. In the original Thief series, you could shoot rope arrows at any wooden thing, and the rope would drop down, and you could climb up. You could also pull your rope arrows out of the wood. This was an important part of the game because you often didn't have very many rope arrows, but a lot of places that you could use them. So part of the strategy sometimes was, okay, I'm going to shoot a rope arrow here, like the ledge is over here, and I'm going to shoot the rope arrow close to the ledge so that I can jump on the ledge and then grab my rope arrow and be on my way. So you can't even retrieve your rope arrows. You were very limited into where you could put them, which again just felt very paint by numbers and very, very disappointing and a stupid choice of things. You can only carry one breakable item. There wasn't enough of those. Like in the game, in original games, you could only carry one item. Like you had special items like vases and stuff that you could pick up, but you couldn't put in your inventory. Does that make sense? So I could, throw the vase across the room to distract the guards. So it's similar in that aspect, but in this game, you can pick up far less than you could in the original games. I could pick up a lot of just random plates and chairs and other things. I think you could pick up chairs in the original. But you could pick up just random items and throw them to distract the guards. Here, the things that you can throw to distract are pretty rare. I won't say rare, but they're not very common at all, which is just silly. There's no reason for it. I should be able to pick up just about anything. I could probably find 20 objects while still sitting in this chair within arm's reach to pick up to throw. I've got a cat here I could throw if I wanted to make plenty of distracting noise. But it was just stupid limitation of that was just completely and utterly unnecessary. Swoop was also grossly broken. It was way too good. Yes, if you spammed it like 6 or 7 times, you eventually couldn't use it anymore. But that's not 6 or 7. Like, I didn't even know you could run out until I was just fiddling around with it, like just messing around. And I was like, oh, you actually get tired from using swoop a whole bunch. That ability was way too powerful. Give it like a 5-second cooldown or something. That's the part where the swoop is where you quickly move forward or quickly move back relatively silently. It definitely wasn't immune because I tried to swoop over glass and that did not go well. But put that stuff on like a 5-second cooldown or something. That shit was broken. I had to force myself to try not to use it in important. I used it to travel sometimes just to move from one place to the other quickly. But like just in game, just way, way, way too powerful. Let's talk about the city layout. Oh man, I could go on and on about this. The idea that you had this open world hub where you travel between it to get to missions, or you can go try to get side missions and go to the merchant and buy things, that adds a little bit more depth to the world. It makes it seem like a more connected world. But there's so many problems with it. It just felt like the city was designed by a schizophrenic. Like, it just didn't make any damn sense. The very initial area where you were at, like there's a few 1 or 2 paths that you can run from there. Those seemed to flow pretty well. But after that, it just seemed a huge mess. And way too often, you would see, oh, my quest objective is at point A over here. And it's like, let's do this. I'm here at my little goatee. I just go from here. Oh, God. Here to here. Nope. You go here. Oh, there's a gate that's blocked off. Well, I'll go this way. Oh, no, that doesn't work either. You have to go like a very specific way of going through windows and through a room. And it was just a very poorly thinned attempt to hide loading zones. And it was just awful. I understand the consoles don't have enough RAM for this, but just throw this idea out. Like, I lost so much time trying to remember, especially because I would not play the game for stretches at a time and my memory's terrible. But I would have so many times I'm like, okay, I'm trying to go to this area and oh wait, this place is blocked off. I forgot. Well, what's the way around that I have to get to this area? Because I can't just go straight to it. And it just felt really sloppy, and it was very, very frustrating. And the city felt like it was designed by game designers. It didn't feel like a real city at all. For example, you'd go into people's houses all the time, like break into the window, and there'd be no logical way out of that room, or there'd be like a really small door that was all blocked off. And you'd break into these houses and these windows, and there's never anybody there. It's like very small rooms with traps, random traps, no actual people. Very, very rarely were there actually people inside these houses, even asleep. Like, where are these people? Why is there nobody like sleeping in this town? I understand there was like the disease, and that was probably killing a lot of people, and there's quarantine in certain areas. But there's people walking around. There's people obviously in the city. Where are they at? They're not in their houses, and if they are, they're in the houses we can't get into. And I think they just did a piss poor job of implementing that properly. It's just the town was just too just randomly built. Getting around the town was annoying as hell because like the fifth or sixth time that you're having to go back and forth between the same area to go turn a quest in, to go pick up new quests, or go to the merchant, or whatever you had to do, it just got really, really, really old, really fast. And that's probably one of the most frustrating aspects of the game was the city design. One positive thing I'll say too about the missions, often there were multiple ways to go. I remember early on there was this sketch up of the first level, and it was very, very linear. And the big thing was comparing that level 1 to some other level in Thief 2, I think it was, which had like, a really wide open area, tons of places to go. And first of all, you're comparing a first level of a game, which was like a tutorial mission, to like an advanced level in another game in the series. That's not even fair. But secondly, the original map that they showed of the original Thief Reboot wasn't even accurate. Like, it was an old map, or it was like just an unfinished map, because when you actually played it, there actually were multiple paths to go. And for the most part, in most areas, there were multiple ways to go. As with the other Thieves, you're always going to end up, you're usually going to end up funneling to the same area, because you're trying to steal this scepter, or you're trying to steal this stone, or whatever it is you're trying to do. So you're still going to get to the same place eventually. But I feel like the new game did a good job of, I felt like there was usually, I didn't feel like I was streamlined. I didn't feel like I was pushed into, this is the only way you can go. Often I was like, I was like, well, I want to go this way. And I go this way for a while. I'm like, I want to go back because I want to find every single little thing. So I ended up going back, and there's a long path to go that way too. So it felt like they did a good job of giving you multiple paths. And I feel like any of the criticism that it was linear is completely and utterly unfounded. And stealing, how could I leave this so late into the video? Stealing felt very satisfying. Watching your hand like nab into the dresser drawers and grab items out, that felt really nice. Like it gave it a little extra something. It makes it really feel like you're really stealing this stuff. And I really like that aspect for the most part. Every now and then, like if you found like a special item and you're like, oogling at it, and there's like a guard walking up behind, you're like spamming right click, like, Garrett, for God's sakes, I need you to hide. There's a guard coming back around. But yeah, I really like that. Actually seeing your hand grab stuff, I think, was a very small change that added a lot to it. I will say that I don't like the change of forcing you to do the animation of opening things. So, for example, if there was a dresser 2 feet in front of me, and I know there's a trap on the ground, I should have the option, like in the original games, basically you got within range of the thing that you could operate on. It would light up, you press the key, and you would just operate on it. There was you just operate it. And you would not move to it. There was no animation. This game, I see that same drawer, and I know there's a trap, and I click it, my character moves forward right on top of it and opens it. There's no need for that. If I know that trap is there, I'm going to be smart about it. Again, realistically, I like using my hands apparently. Like this drawer is trapped, and I know there's a tile here. I'm going to be smart and kind of open the drawer from like a back. This is a drawer opening motion, by the way. This is universal. But like pulling back, I'm not going to go there and stand right in front of it and open it. Now, I will say the original, at least the original Thief, I haven't replayed Thief 2 in a long time, but the original Thief, the range you could do that was far too far away. Like, you could open doors from like 5 and 6 feet away easily. Apparently, Garrett had some super long arms or psychic powers that only had very short range. But you could open too far, but this game goes too far in the other directions. It forces you to get right on top of it, even when you know it's trapped. And they do limit you on how you deal with traps. For example, again, I know that when I open this chest, little spikes are going to shoot out of it because I can see the spikes in the wall. Well, again, the chest is right here, the opening is right here. I'm not going to I see the spike and get right in front of it and open it. I can open the chest from the side if it's not, I could pick the lock and then move to the side of the chest and open it. Not in this game. Garrett is too stupid and will get right in front of it and open it up. Just things like that they feel very fake. They're like, no, you have to go disable that. You have to get those wire cutters. You have to find the wire trap and then snip it. And then you can open the chest. It's like, give me options. And so they did a good job on giving you options of where to go. They did a poor job of giving you options on how to deal with things like that with traps. There was only one way to deal with traps for the most part, and that was to disable them or just avoid them altogether. There wasn't really anything of interest else that you could do. I don't think, for example, the pressure plates, I don't think you could shoot them with a bow or throw something on them to trigger them, and then you could easily, trigger them so you can just jump on it and take whatever you need and then leave. So they took away a lot of options there, I feel was poorly done, and I feel like it really took away from the game. Let's talk about Garrett's personality real quick, and we'll pull this to a close. I've heard a lot of complaints about his personality, and he's a real toss bag in this game, and he was so much cooler in the original. First of all, I love Garrett in the first games. I think he was just a really cool character that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed playing him. I hearing him talk. But let's not forget what Garrett was in the original games. Garrett was very lone wolf. He only gave a shit about himself. The only reason he helped other people, for the most part, was because he was getting something out of it. Pretty much every instance I can recall that he helped others was to either save himself or to benefit himself in some way. He wasn't a bad person. He was a thief. He's stealing stuff all the time. So he can't be that great. And he's just giving it to himself. So he wasn't like a great guy, and he wasn't a total jerk, but he wasn't a really nice person either. He didn't give a damn about anyone but himself. He was very self-centered. And the new Garrett is kind of like that, but obviously he cares about Aaron. He obviously cares about Basso, and he's a more relatable character, I guess, in that regard for most people. I don't think it's fair to call him like a douchebag or a jerk. And I think his character was fine for the most part. His little snippy little remarks during the game, pretty on par with things that Garrett would say. The original Garrett would say plenty of cheesy things and just his commentary was mostly the same in both games. And I think a lot of people who love the original games haven't played them in a long time and have very rose-colored glasses about how things were and that don't quite match with reality. And I think those people should probably replay the original games. Again, I think the original games are still great. I replayed Thief 1 less than a year ago probably. And I've been meaning to replay 2 and 3. But you should really replay them to remind you what the game was really like, how bad the AI really was, and how it really, really was. Again, great series though. I'd highly suggest everyone play them. But overall, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say about the game as a whole. I like to give 2 scores. I like to give a review score, number score. I know it's like the cool thing to hate numbered scores now for whatever stupid reason. But I use the full scale, 1 to 10. 5 is a mediocre game. Like there's almost as much good as it is bad. Maybe worth your time if you can get it really cheap. A 10, which does not exist. Even my favorite games of all time do not get a 10. Would be like the perfect game. And 9 would obviously be exceptional, etc., etc. Overall, what would I give this game? It's hard for me to rate, is the answer. Overall, taking everything into account, my overall personal feelings for the game, I'd give it about a 6.5 to a 7. The reason being, I enjoyed the stealth elements for the most part. I love that there's tons to do. I love the atmosphere. I love the way it looks, and I like some of the aspects which aren't really used that much, like the free running parts. The fancy name I've totally just slipped my mind. Those parts were fun, but they've gutted too much of what made Thief Thief. And after seeing a lot of the AI issues that are still not fixed, and especially after hearing their excuses during interviews about, well, we didn't want to make it too smart, now comes off as just being lazy, incompetent, or just naive. So overall, like I say, I'm happy with it, like as a game unto itself, as a stealth game unto itself. But as a now permanent entry in the Thief franchise, I feel it's a poor entry, and I feel it's a poor representation of what the Thief series originally was about. So yes, I would say about 6.5 or 7, which again, keep in mind, 6.5 is still better than average for me. And a 7 is still a good game. A 7 is still good. Not like the IGN, where a terrible game is a 7. I also like to give a price grade on games, because I think a price grade is really good because it tells you what I think you should pay for the game. Because there's some games where I'm like, this game's a 5, or this game's a 5.5. But if you can pick it up for $5, I would say it's worth a shot, right? This game, if you are a fan of the original Thief series, like a big fan like I am, and you're willing to overlook some things and not go too ballistic over them, I'd say up to around $30 maybe. Because I feel like you would probably be, like I was, disappointed in a lot of the aspects. I know a lot of the hardcore Thief fans like hated it, but they were going to hate it regardless, let's be honest. So I try to be even-handed when I go in, knowing that I'm a huge fanboy of the series. I try to be earnest and fair, and I feel like I was when I played this game. And like I said, it actually beat my expectations. I had very low expectations. But at any rate, yeah, about 30 to maybe 40, probably not. It's probably a little too high. If you just like stealth games, and maybe you haven't really played that many like medieval type stealth games where you're sneaking around, you get a blackjack and a bow, you don't have like guns and like frag grenades and all that stuff, and you don't have like crazy powers like Dishonored, I'd say probably about the same price, 20, 25, 30, somewhere in there. If you could get either side, if you could get this game for $10 or $15 and you like stealth games, I think it's worth playing, especially if you're the type who's going to go back and you're going to try to get most, if not all, of the loot. If you're going to try to get all the collectible plaques and the mortal coils and the dead memories and the paintings and all of that, then, bump that price up. If you're one of those completionists, bump that price up about $5 to $10, because you're going to get a lot of time out of it. And especially if you're a person who's going to try to get Ghost, it's going to take you a while to do and a lot of save reloading. So that's going to add some time to it if you value time to money ratio, which I think is important. But yeah. So anyway, yes, that's overall. Again, too long didn't watch. Probably should put that at the beginning. But too long didn't watch. Fun game, an okay stealth game. Lots and lots of stuff to do. Lots of stuff to shoot for, like higher scores or getting full Ghost versus full Predator, etc. But a poor game in the Thief series due to lacking a lot of the soul, a lot of the central elements that made the Thief games. Thank you guys for watching. As always, leave comments in the comments. Leave comments in the comment description below. Let me know what you thought of this video. Make sure to check out my Thief LP if you have not already. Follow me on Twitter, and I will see you next time.